Welcome back to Roody 2D, Day 3, as I'm calling it. I made a mess. If you zoom out here, you'll see the base. I was trying to keep this as an alleyway, but you'll notice I've blocked myself in. I can go down if I need to, because it just so happens you can walk through these frames, which is kind of cool. But other than that, I'm boxed in. So for right now, what I've been doing is welding those. And then I kind of just give myself an exit point here. You'll see I've submitted this, made a few of those. Tried to automate that. Didn't work. I might try again this episode. But that's given us the capacitor, the potentiometer, the latch, the galvanometer, and the divider. Some of these look very complicated. The other interesting thing I've unlocked, automated crafting. All these are submitted. We have the welder, and the combiner, which is kind of what you see here. This guy will weld the 3 blocks kind of in front of it, and as long as you use the correct combination of conveyors or blocking to throttle it, it welds what you want, if that makes sense. For instance, these 3 get welded, and as soon as they're valid, they get sucked up if there's room. Notice that. Or these guys are getting combined into the frames. A welder welds 3 of them, and then just because of the timing, I wonder if I can simulate that again. It's more of a trial by error for me right now. I figured out that if I place the conveyor here, I guess how does that work? 1, 2, 3, the 3rd guy grabs it, it welds a 4th one on, if that makes sense. We got 4, and then this guy just welds the spool piece on, and as soon as it's a valid item, which we can see by going here, 4 frames, 1 copper spool, equals 4 wire, it automatically gets sucked up by the combiner. So the exact mechanic and the speed of all that happening, I haven't quite figured out yet. It's very much a trial and error. Same with up here. This one's interesting. If you hit F1, we have the cap. It can only be connected to at its base. So notice how I can weld here. If I try to weld on the side or on the top, you get a red X. That means the Mantler also has that same property. So it's only going to weld these 2 before this one piece is sitting in front of the combiner and it gets converted to the spool. Again, hitting F1, you can see the recipe. Without this piece here, this would have welded all 3 of them and it wouldn't have been valid, turned into a spool. So again, here we need a renewable source of stone. Haven't worked that one out yet. We've had to start building up top here because we're running out of room. And I was playing with this in a creative world, and I thought it was really interesting. If I can find a tree I'm actually having a hard time with, there's a few keybinds that I want to share that as I was completing the quests or the research, the game actually told me about. And one of them is the middle click button on the mouse. I didn't realize it, but hovering over this item, you see in the right, it's blinking green. That actually helps you find items to see the switch is even blinking and the extractor's blinking green. If we middle click, it actually auto selects them. So if I want pulp, I can middle click, it grabs it. If I want the rubber, middle click, and same with here. Middle click, we've selected it. We have furnaces, we happen to have furnaces, and rollers. That is extremely useful because I've been trying to find it in this menu. Just last night the game told me about the middle click button. Anyways, back to the log. This is an interesting mechanic. I'm trying to make pulp, right? See what's happening there? Watch what happens when I throw down a 3rd conveyor. I guess it's the speed at which it's leaving the furnace that it just works better. I'm struggling to understand or explain, I guess, why that works, but I guess the block falling animation slows it down, or it happens too quickly. Maybe the conveyor slows it down. It processes, but it never seems to fail. In my creative world last night, I was trying to do this with just one furnace. You'll know that the extractor makes 2 pulp. So I think the easiest way to handle this right now without overcomplicating it is just 2 arc furnaces. If we grab the transistor and we weld that here, but if we take the maple logs, which we're almost out of, when this furnace is processing, it's emitting a signal. And so when you give a transistor, I hit F1 here, it inverts the signals. When charged from any of the 3 sides, the output is off. So basically the output's on, it's inverted, unless you give a side power and then it inverts it. So you're always on, you can tell how it's glowing orange there. And as soon as this furnace is doing work, it will stop the extractor. I would like to really understand the tick rate, if that makes sense in this game. You know, order of operations. Taking a step back here, you can see how my base is very cluttered. This was an interesting prototype. I expect to build further in, I don't know, either direction and redo some of these systems. You can see how this system's not very efficient, this copper bar, because these copper bars just hang out here. They'll never get used. I guess they're handy if I just want to grab from them. To do something like a conveyor belt, that's under movers. You need this piece and this piece. Well, I'm not going to be able to send, you know, these pieces and these pieces down a line somewhere easily to get mantled or welded. I expect to have to get out a piece of paper and really think about my supply lines, you know, what's coming upstream, up at the top, and then kind of doing gravity fed. Taking a look at the quest tree or the research. I keep forgetting what it's called, the research tree. I'm not super interested in the emitters. This is like a vehicle thing. Mass core could be interesting, especially since it says a bigger backpack. But I really got to figure out how to automate cast iron. And to a lesser extent, the mover, which should be actually fairly straightforward. Easier said than done. This guy will just run indefinitely, which I suppose you gotta be careful of. But I can pick up these guys. And I hit Q, and they go away. If I hit tab, oh look at that, these 3 don't stack with that 13 I already have. Rotate them, now they do. Well, it just so happens, here's a decent example of how I would do something manually. Fortunately, these pieces are welded together, but I have to click through all here and weld these ones. And I had tried automating these away, a certain way, but based on how you can't weld the coils together this way, my plan didn't work. They have to be welded together this way. We get rid of that. Again, push this button to try to clean things up. See the inventory is getting really full. And now I can pick these up. Got 8 of them. If I hit Q, they actually have a home. If I was to move things around, I wouldn't be able to put them away. That's always kind of fun. We can put it away with Q. We can now pick up the combiner. And this is what I would do. Oops, I'm crushing myself. An absolute genius. This little setup. This was me trying things on my own and it was an utter disaster. I need to make cast iron, right? My thinking was, you know, have these items getting fed in. But just me doing this little demonstration here, you can see all the ways it does not work. Besides the timing of it all, actually pushing these resources in isn't really going to work for me. I probably got to flip this guy 180, stop using these magnets, but you can see the sand is needed. And unfortunately, you can't weld sand to anything. That's an interesting property of the sand. So either you got to use magnets like this, I suppose, or somehow flip, you know, the whole contraption 180. I guess if I wanted to do a demonstration, we're running out of room. Even though this is temporary, I'm doing this so it doesn't fall down. Every time I try to break something, whole piece gets dropped and it makes me sad. This is me trying a design live on camera where the stakes are up. Kind of want to see what happens because there's always what you think's going to happen and then there's what actually happens. Well, nothing's welded, not even these middle iron bars. Let's see what happens. Aha. We will try that again. Then the wire is here. And I believe the orientation does matter for the wire spool. Okay, so of course the items fall at a different block speed. So another thing that's just occurring to me is I was thinking I could send a vertical section of wire spools, vertical section of iron bars that are welded like that. Of course, you can't weld these there, like I discussed earlier. I was thinking all this guy has to do is just weld these pieces together, and then the whole thing counts as one. You don't have to get solder joints in the middle. As long as this was one piece, and this is one piece, and the third piece, connecting it down here would be perfectly fine. All I'd have to do is, get rid of this stuff. It could actually fit. But it seems to me each layer of this is what has to be welded in this direction. What is this, round 5? Again, it seems like we've got an issue with gravity. Here's an interesting thought. What if I got rid of those and just had the far guy pushing? I don't know about anybody else. I have a very hard time visualizing it. I have to actually do it. Well, that attempt was so close. First layer, good. Then it all went bad. Alright, one of my last ditch efforts. Wow. Talk about trying to overthink things. So that doesn't really get me any better though, because now that I have these 3 pieces, how do I actually run these things over a Mantler to connect them? Because like I said before, if I was to put a Mantler right here, this guy cannot weld those joints. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure why in particular I'm hyper focused on this particular automation. But if we were to do something like half of it, weld you like that. Okay, now what happens? Okay, cool, that's 3. I suppose then somebody could drop this down. They could have like a piston in the floor, retract it. What if you had a piston? You had a piston, you welded it, and you could somehow sense when this was welded. I'm not sure if that's possible. This is just me thinking out loud. If I hit F here, will this conveyor that's upside down actually suck that forward? Well, that's potentially cool, right? I'm having a real problem here with gravity. Let's try this again. So obviously I need some kind of like a stopper there, but that's small details. Oh, this is interesting. Am I actually getting close to an idea here? This is terrible. You can quickly see how the base kind of devolves to utter chaos. Oh no, I've lost this piece. How do I get it back? I suppose this is the problem with working in the air. Okay, so I might have to like split this, I guess. Can I get up? Okay. Perfect. Problem solved. I have to do something like this. Whoops. I wonder if there's a way to unlock a longer reach. Where does this go? Here? You're getting the full experience of the game right now, I tell you. Something seems lined up wrong, but I can't quite place what it is. It's definitely something to do with this wall. I think this is welded now, so it's not going to fall. Perfect. Back to where we started. We're welding that. I see I'm also short a welder. But potentially, if I could feed a constant stream of these coils here, all we would need is a second one of these Mantlers. How expensive are these things? And all I have to do is drop them in front of this combiner, pick them up, drop this last guy. Not a terrible workflow, right? Could be better. We're learning. So now what? Didn't weld it. Oh man, I'm dumb. Oh, it hurts. I haven't learned anything. You can't weld pieces like that. This is a learning exercise. And what we've learned is I can't figure this out. Something I figured that's worth showing after my colossal failure trying to make a inductor welding machine is a tree farm. I loaded up a playground where I do some testing because you can see my base is kind of chaotic to work around in. At least in this game mode of cheats, you can hit J. Whoops, let's close that. You can hit J and it kind of brings up a big inventory. You can hit V on the keyboard as in Victor and no clips on. Probably don't want to take it off when you're in something. What's supposed to happen here is this tree supposed to grow while I'm talking, and it's not. But what's interesting about this circuit, I didn't really explain this, did I? In this menu, this tree was just here before I kind of screwed everything up. It was like a pre-built thing as an example. So, oh, there it goes. That part's not really working, and I don't think I broke it. I think it comes from the example just like this. Let's try that little fix. But this tree farm is actually really smart because this Mantler is always making sure that the log is welded to the dirt. And we hit F1 on here. It actually shows that. I've tried to plant, if I middle click this guy here, I've tried to make trees like this. It does not work. They'll never grow. Even if you weld them like this, I believe they will not grow. It has to be welded to the ground for it to actually grow. So this is smart. Every time the tree grows, I think this connection might break. Maybe it doesn't. As soon as the log's in front of the extractor, it makes pulp. And I guess a person needs to fine tune this. But once this arc furnace is running, it will disable the extractor so nothing else gets interrupted. Which is, I guess, where I got the original idea from to use a transistor there. I just thought I'd show that because being able to harvest trees early game is pretty sweet. I've been wanting to do that for a while. And this is an automation build that is cool, compact, and I accidentally spoiled it for myself by coming into the creative mode.